He's gonna go. He's gonna fight me. He's a big monkey. He thinks he's awesome.
Hey everybody, it's me, Undead Viking. It's been a while since I've done an RPG review, and I wanted to do one for a little bit. And I've actually had a lot of RPGs that I've been working on as far as doing the reviews of, and I just sometimes you get a book, and the thing about when I do a review of a board game, I play it 3-4 times, and then I feel like I know the game pretty well and I can do a review. The difference is that with an RPG, it's either I need to read the entire adventure, which can be very daunting if the adventure is quite large, or I need to read through a rule set and then maybe have a session of the game or something like that to kind of get a feel for it, if you will. So what I've done actually fairly recently is I have a campaign that I play that's actually a homebrew set of rules that we've just cobbled together as we've played the game, and they work really well. And I mean, they probably wouldn't work really well for anybody else, but for us they work really well. And we've then I picked up a rule set that's called Swords and Wizardry. And this is a very old school D&D type of rule book, and I wanted to try it out. I wanted to play it basically because the type of game that we've cobbled together, it's like a mishmash of first edition D&D, a little bit of second, some 3.5, and a little bit of Pathfinder, and we kind of have taken the stuff that we like and jammed it together, and there's even some other crazy stuff from computer games and themes and stuff like that we pulled, and we created a system. But I wanted to find a really truly old school D&D that I used to play. I grew up playing the old basic D&D rules that came out. Then you got that expert set, and then so on and so forth. Then I graduated to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That was where I went to next. And I've always missed that really basic Dungeons and Dragons. A friend of mine, actually the person that introduced me to the game was my brother. And then I got to play with his group of friends or whatever, and I couldn't tell you what version of the rules we played back then, because I don't remember the books or anything like that. But I mean, I remember begging my mom to get me the big red box set, the basic D&D, and she did. And then I asked her to get me the advanced stuff later and stuff, and she did. She was really awesome. So I can remember, though, like everybody else, taking my brother and his friends through B2, the Keep on the Borderlands, and doing that classic old adventure in the Caves of Chaos. And I loved it. And I remember all the cool things where it's if you just ran out of hit points, you were dead. There was no -10, slowly bleeding out. No, you were just dead. You're at -1. Poison traps were save or die. It wasn't okay, you lose 2 points of dex, now try again in a minute, and maybe you lose another 2 points of dex. It was just, no, you poison, you're dead, you die in a frothing mass on the ground, that kind of thing. And it was one of those things where you couldn't really get attached to your character. And you'd sit there and you'd roll up 3d6s. There was no 4d6, drop the lowest, that sort of thing. But anyway, I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, and I apologize for that. But that's the kind of D&D that I miss. I don't really enjoy Pathfinder anymore. Mostly because the game kind of breaks right around 8th, 9th, 10th level or so. I mean, you can purposely and very easily make characters that are doing hundreds of points of damage around. And that's not a wizard. I mean, that's a warrior with power attack and a two-handed sword. You can pick certain abilities and feats, and you can totally min-max out. And it's I feel people get away from the storytelling portion of the game and the actual role playing or creating an interesting character, because the character is interesting because of their beliefs or their attitude or just the way they look or things like that. They're interesting because of that, not because they're this walking Ginsu knife that is just cutting through the enemies to and fro, so I wanted to get away from that because I just wasn't really all that excited about playing that stuff anymore. And then so I read Swords and Wizardry. Now the cool thing is I'm going to talk about this book, Swords and Wizardry, which I purchased, and this is distributed by Frog God Games, but this was written by Matthew Finch, and you can actually download the basic rules, which is just a little bit less than what's in this book, that runs you about $35 online. And but the rules, you can download a set of the rules completely and totally free. You can, if you go to like Frog God Games or I think Sword and Wizardry website, you can download the rule set, and then you can play. You can start up and play the game immediately at that point. And so maybe like after I talk about this a little bit, maybe that's something you want to do. And then the complete rule book, it adds a lot of flavor. It adds some classes. It adds some interesting options. It has a very good monster section in here. There's a good monster section in the rules you can download as well, but this expands on that a little bit. And like it just fleshes out like a lot of the rules. But the really cool thing about Swords and Wizardry is that you don't really need a lot of rules. In Pathfinder or in like 3.5 or I've read the 5th edition books. I have 5th edition D&D books over there. I've read them. I'm never going to play it. I just don't have any interest in it. They're very structured. They have rules that affect almost every situation you're going to get into. Swords and Wizardry is more of a fly-by the seat of your pants type of game. It's up to the DM, and the thing is that you have to be a good dungeon master to do Swords and Wizardry. And I don't say that to be a braggart or anything like that, because I'm running a Swords and Wizardry campaign right now, and people are having a lot of fun with it. But you have to be able to... the game doesn't lay it all out for you. It doesn't say... okay, well, here's what the troll can do each and every round, and this is what it affects. And it doesn't tell you, it's like, okay, this is the battle tactics for this particular creature, and what it does, and what this thing does, and what this secret door, how it affected. And there's all kinds of things like that, where it's just, there's a ton of rules. And in Swords and Wizardry, one of the first and most basic rules in the game is if you don't like what's in the book, don't use it. If you don't think the rule's good, don't use it. Come up with your own thing. Do your own thing. Come up with a rule that you and your players enjoy and think fits better. And there isn't that weird structure that goes on. But on the flip side of that, as the DM, you have to not only be able to have a very modular rule set, but you also have to make it fair. And you have to be able to, you can't be seen as a guy who's just, putting the screws to the players just for the sheer glee of watching them squirm. But you have to kind of allow them to be successful in such a way that they're not really sure if you're really trying hard to kill them or not, and there's a very good, actually I'm sub-referencing here in just a little bit, but at the Frog God Games website there is like an old school primer, if you will, like an old school primer to old school gaming, and it's a really good read, and like there's things in there that are very, very, very straightforward, and a lot of it is if you've played D&D or played role-playing games for a long time, it's not gonna be like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that before. But I mean, it does reinforce the idea of accomplishment and players, and like anybody can roll 4d6 7 times, get rid of the lowest score, get rid of the lowest die, and have a character that's going to have several stats that are above the norm. And you're going to be able to make a character that's going to be very successful, and it's cool to make those characters. Don't get me wrong. It's fun to have a powerful character, and it's fun to watch them grow and increase in their ability. It's like, but my last character I had for a Pathfinder campaign was a fighter, and I just made him a walking murder machine. It was just, and it was very easy to do. You took power attack and certain other things, and you were just able to like up that ability and up that damage. And the thing about it was that it was fun. You know, I mean, I was fun watching him kind of grow exponentially as he gained levels, and how and give lots of credit to my DM. He did a really good job of like you know, we kind of expanded on that, and then like my character actually had like a reputation, and he was, you know, he was kind of like, because you know, he was lawful evil, you know, and so he was kind of tyrannical, but you know, and so he actually started having people trying to, you know, make a name for themselves by taking him down in a combat and things like that, and so it led to some interesting role playing situations, but I find that that's kind of goes against the grain a little bit, because you know, it just doesn't seem like, I didn't feel like I actually really accomplished anything with him. You know, I mean, I could have made that character 1,000 times over. Yes, he had a good story. He had a very good beginning. He had a good middle, and then he had a good end, you know, for the campaign. And it did have a good story, but I never felt like I actually earned what he did, if you will. You know, and so, and that might seem weird, but when you have characters that aren't super powerful or super amazing, and like, you know, not gods among men, you know, walking amongst them, then when you do succeed, and you probably won't, that's the whole thing, but when you do succeed and you like trick the giant and get his treasure, or you get to a high level against all odds, then that's something you can actually be very proud of. And it isn't the character that's good, it's the player that's good. The player that is able to discern the secrets and figure out the traps and figure out the riddles, and you know when it's best to not go through the evil black door, and maybe retreat and just forget about that place until we gain a couple levels and come back. You know, that ability to show that restraint and wise choices, that's a big part of. And so, and I get it. I mean, there's going to be some people that type of gaming is going to appeal to, and there's going to be some people that type of gaming isn't going to appeal to, and I understand why people are on either side. But regardless, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to play Swords and Wizardry. I wanted to have people that, one, you'd recognize the fact that, you know, being in the world of Swords and Wizardry, it's very dangerous. Your characters aren't, unless you get lucky, you know, they're not going to live, and so you have to combine a little bit of luck with a little bit of cleverness, and then you can maybe succeed. So that's what this game is. It's a very, very, very good, very basic rule set that harkens back to old school D&D. You know, and they have armor classes that get lower as they get better. Now it actually has rules to flip that, because a lot of people are used to now getting armor classes that climb, and it works better, you know, but you know, they have, you know, things like that. The save versus poison or die, I mean, that's something that exists. The process in which you roll up your character, you're just supposed to write out, you know, strength, you know, dex, wisdom, intelligence, constitution, charisma, and roll 3d6 and go straight down, and that's what you get. But the thing is, stats don't matter as much, because a high stat isn't really going to get you much. I mean, it's going to maybe get you like a few little bonuses, but nothing like, you know, like game systems that people are used to, like 3.5 or Pathfinder or 5th edition, if you will. You know, if you're, and like the bonus to hit and damage for high strength only affects if you're a fighter. And not like a paladin or a ranger or something. No, just a fighter. You get that bonus. You know, because it's just something that fighters get. You know, a high wisdom doesn't get a cleric extra spells. It gives them extra experience points. And like a high charisma does the same. And a high charisma is actually important, because to survive in this world, you have to go out and hire henchmen. You know, guys that are willing to risk their lives and follow you into a dungeon, and also hack away at the evil beasties that you run into for a split of the treasure. But in order to get those guys to come with you, and to get those guys to believe in you and not slit your throat as you sleep, you have to have a high charisma and make sure you pay them. And so it's a different world, you know, for the campaign. you know, I mean, I'm not going to go too far. I mean, first of all, you got a great Errol Otis cover, obviously. You know, and if you don't know who Errol Otis is, classic D&D illustrator. You know, so there's that. You know, as far as what the game looks like and the rules and what have you, it is, you know, more of like the same, you know, nice art and what have you. I mean, the standard, you know, 2-column information. You know, I mean, there's, like I said, you can go and download the vast majority of this particular book anyway for nothing. And, you know, it's like, so I'm not going to go too far into what's inside the book, but if you remember playing like old school D&D, you know, like if you remember playing like Dungeons and Dragons when you were younger, this is what that game is all about. There is a very good encounters thing for DMs in the middle, and that isn't all of it, but as far as like rolling up random encounters, they wonderful tables as far as that goes. It has wonderful tables, you know, for all the things like for ship combat, for aerial combat, you know, and then like as I mentioned, there are of course, you know, monsters. And notice how the monster things aren't huge. You know, they aren't like a giant stat block or anything like that. Monsters in Swords and Wizardry are really, really deadly. And players, if they are going to go into the hole in the ground and go and see what's in there, some of them aren't coming back unless, you know, you get really lucky or you run and run and run and run. And one of the things is that monsters, the only reason you really want to kill them, because you don't get a lot of experience points for killing monsters. You get experience points from the treasure. That's the most important thing. And the thing about the monsters is they have the treasure. And so, but if you can somehow, like, trap the monster or get them to lead them away from their lair and trick them in some way, but get the treasure, without having to actually worry about getting your face caved in by a giant ogre club, then all the better, because the treasure is what you're interested in, because the treasure is what's going to get you your experience points. So it's a different system. It's a different world. You know, those of people that are going to take the Diablo approach and just try to kill everything they run into, those characters aren't going to live very long in Swords and Wizardry. And it's the ones that are going to be very cautious and know the better side, you know, being able to retreat and you know, discretion being the better part of valor, if you will. Same deal. So, if you think that sort of a system interests you, then I would really advise you go to Swords and Wizardry, the website, or go to Frog God Games, the website, and download the free version of this and give it a read. And maybe roll up a character. Maybe invite a couple of buddies over, old school gaming buddies of yours, and just say, you know, because there's like plenty of like free like introductory adventures you can find if you spend some time on the web, and just say let's just try this out for an evening, and like maybe order in a pizza and crack a couple of beers and just relax and recognize the fact that whatever your character is, you know, don't get too attached to them. But maybe if you can get them to survive 2 or 3 adventures, and you'll start to have a personality for them and start to get to know them, get to know that character, because the experiences they've had to get to that point has created this persona for them, and then you're going to get attached to that character, and then that's when Swords and Wizardry gets fun. It's because then, you know, the decision of going into the cave is a really poignant one. You know, the decision to accept the quest that the guy says, yeah, I need you to go check out this old broken down wizard tower in the forest. You know, it's like, you know, do you have something a little easier maybe? Or when you get there, it's like, all right, we saw it, let's just go back. You know, it's but if you know the line, who dares wins, you know, but you know, to dare and to adventure, and then if you pull off that win, you know, then all the better. So yeah, I mean, the game is brutal and it doesn't take any prisoners, but as I've said repeatedly, if you're looking for a nice bare bones like old school, really, I mean, like people say a dungeon crawl experience. If you're looking for a wonderful old school dungeon crawl experience, I think this is probably what you're looking for. So there you go. If you have any questions about Swords and Wizardry or anything about it, I'd be happy to answer those. And yeah, so thanks for taking the time to watch this video. And until next time, this was Undead Viking telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right.